Coach, thank you very much for your time. You have already secured, your passage into the knockout stages. Just your preparations and how you would approach that day, bearing in mind that you have successfully secured a place in the knockouts.
Good morning to everyone. For us, it really does not mean much the fact that we have already secured a place in the quarterfinal. I think I said it before, our biggest competition is ourselves. We have a bigger responsibility to improve or to better our benchmarks. And our benchmark is the 13 points that we got last year in the group stages. And we have a responsibility to better that because it is very important for us as a club to minimize the possibilities of seeing how stressful it is when we lose a match. So to try and make sure that we give this match the respect that it requires, and we go out there with a mentality to win, because that is very important in how we want to finish the season. As it is now, we are saying in the past 2 years, we have only lost 3 matches, and that for us is very important. To try and make sure that we minimize the possibilities of losing matches.
Thank you, Coach. We'll start with our colleagues joining us virtually. Let's start with yourself, Mr. Musia. Vuyo, I have noted you as well as Mr. Musia.
Okay, thank you, Tabang, and good morning to the coach and everyone. Coach, I just wanted
Taviso, can you hear us?
Oh, sorry, did I unmute myself?
Yeah.
We did not hear the question.
Taviso, can you go ahead again? Sorry about that. Taviso, are you there?
Yeah, sorry about that, Tabang. I think there was a call coming through. Apologies. I just wanted to find out from the coach if the players that were with Bafana will be considered for this game. And if you can also give us an injury update on Rivaldo, because the Bafana coach had mentioned that he was injured and that's why he left him out.
Maybe if I can start with Rivaldo. He's still injured. He's out with a hernia. He was supposed to go for an operation somewhere this week, I think today or tomorrow. But he's probably out for the next 4 to 6 weeks, I think. And as for the players that went for the national team, there is a possibility that we might consider some of them because of our injury status as well. Because you would remember Tapelo got injured in Sudan, and he's still not yet back. Fortunately, Mudau did not play the full match on Tuesday, so we are hoping that might also help us to a certain extent to be able to help us in the right back position. But in terms of the other injuries, we still have Sapeda out. We still have Gift Motupa out. Musa is still 50-50 with him, but we are optimistic that we have a good team to compete.
Thank you, Coach. Vuyo, please go ahead.
Thanks, Tabang. Good morning, Coach, and good morning to the colleagues. Coach, I've noted, of course, that the issue of fans coming back to stadium has been received positively. But I think over the duration, one thing that has been noted out was just the pace at which the decision had come to be made. It was sort of taking long. And I do understand that at some periods, justifiably, we could have, reasoned with the European countries being first world countries, and they could have easily made this decision easier. But after numerous testing, even in South Africa, not just in football, but in other sporting codes, it seemed like in football, it was taking longer. I just wanted to get how high did your frustration levels really go at the pace at which we then came to make such a decision? And secondly, adding to that, did it ever cross your mind that
to one question, please? Sorry, we are.
Okay, it's linked to this, Thabang. Can I just quickly add it? I'm sorry.
I can't allow you. I'm sorry. We have to let the coach go, so we'll just take that one question. Sorry.
To be honest, at this stage, I think it will be unfair of me or anyone to complain about what has happened in the past, instead of appreciating the fact that now we've got our supporters back into our matches. And the only thing that one would want to see is to urge our supporters to come in numbers to support us and not treat this game as a dead rubber. We don't treat it as a dead rubber. Al-Merrikh is one of the biggest teams in Sudan, and it's a team that has won 3 championships in a row, taking over from Hilal, which made them to be one of the biggest teams in the continent. And we would love to play this match with our supporters and enjoy that drumbeat again, enjoy that singing, and see how the team responds, because the fact that we did not have supporters, that has been a big equalizer in terms of how matches were approached. So we would really love to see our people coming, and I plead with the Yellow Nation to support us here, because this is a dress rehearsal of what we might be expecting to see either in the Nedbank Cup or in the quarterfinals of the Champions League and the league, because the supporters are the most or the integral part of football. Without supporters, football is not the same. So one really, really appreciates the fact that now we are at a stage where we can have our supporters in our matches.
Thank you, Coach. Karab, please go ahead.
Good morning, Coach. Good morning to all my colleagues as well. Coach, how difficult has it been playing for this team, considering that you guys are coming from international break? You've got 5 players who went with Bafana are international as well. So how difficult has it been to prepare for this, last game of the CAF Champions League group stage, Coach?
Yeah, it's always tough, man, to have this first match after the FIFA break. It's never easy, more especially for a team like ours, because we normally lose a lot of players in the process. But this time around, it was a little bit better, considering that now Dennis is no longer traveling to the national team. We have Kennedy around, and fortunately this time around we also had Peter not traveling. Brian Onyango has not been traveling as well. So at least we are safer in that space. It's just that we had quite a number of players in the Bafana squad. But be that as it may, the players that really played maybe more minutes would be a Motori Mbala, would be a Tebo Khomukwena, Laila K to a certain extent. But it's also very good for our players to compete in that space and see how far they are in terms of their ability and in terms of how much growth they've had over the years. But I must say it's never easy to prepare during the FIFA break for the first match after the FIFA break. Unfortunately, we are not traveling. You can imagine how it was going to be like if immediately after the FIFA break we were traveling either to Sudan or Algeria or wherever, where it's not even a direct flight. It's a flight that has got a transit somewhere. So fortunately, we're at home. It's a little bit better, but still, we have not seen the players that were at Bafana. So that's the summary of the story.
Daniel, we have noted you. Let's just give Mr. Mnyandu a chance, and then we'll be followed by yourself. Daniel Mutafai.
Okay. Thank you, Thabang. Coach, good morning. Looking at the field, I think your group is the only one that is maybe just yet to confirm the second qualifier to the next stage. The other groups are decided, and it also, as it always in the last 8, it points to more North African troops not getting ahead of taking nothing away from tomorrow's game. I'm sure in terms of the projections and studying the opponents, already you are looking forward to what the draw could present for you, especially looking at the teams that could be finishing second. the other two groups?
Yeah, no, it's already posing a lot of serious question marks, because when we look at our analysis is telling us that we are probably going to Morocco. If not Morocco, chances are that you are going to Algeria. If not Algeria, chances are that you might also be going to Angola. And that already says this travel is not going to be one of the best, because if you look at all those trips, not even one of them, probably the Angolan one is a direct flight, but it's also not easy. The conditions in Angola are not always easy for anyone. So we are looking at this very closely, but like you are saying, chances are that they are pointing us towards North Africa.
Thank you, Coach. Pratom, please.
So good morning, Coach and colleagues. Coach, seeing that you are technically still playing away from home, that is like you are playing outside Pretoria, your CAF Champions League home matches, how close are you to returning home? And I mean, what has the feel been like with those supporters, traveling with you to FNB Stadium as compared to the atmosphere that you would have playing in Pretoria? So how close are you to playing your home matches in Pretoria? And then, well, it will depend if you also progress in the tournament. Thank you.
I would prefer not to really go deep into us playing in Pretoria, because that is out of our hands. I think other people will have better answers in that space. Ours is to focus on what we have now, which is FNB Stadium. And the previous match we played there, the surface was very good. We enjoyed ourselves. The pitch was good for us to play the type of football we want. And the size of the pitch is also very suitable to us for the type of a game that we always want to see. Yes, of course, you do feel for the supporters to a certain extent, because for them now to travel all the way from Mamelodi to FNB or from Andile Jali to FNB, it's not that easy, but they also understand that it's not in our hands. CAF made a decision in their evaluations, and they felt that our stadiums are not yet at the level that they want. So it's up to those powers that be to be able to look at this thing and see how quickly we can make sure that we are able to go back to one of our stadiums. But at this stage, we are focusing on playing our matches at FNB, because at least we got the 3 points that we wanted in the previous match.
That's good. We'll take the last two questions and then we'll wrap it up. Shoni, please go ahead, and then Karawi will wrap it up.
Thanks, Good morning, Coach. A few weeks ago, something you've spoken about before, just about like the small margin of error between CAF, the Champions League, and domestic football. And just related to the question I asked Musa earlier, what is the difference between, say, players here versus players in Africa and even players in Europe? When you look back at, for example, the match on Tuesday.
I would really not want to put a lot of reference to the match on Tuesday, because I also don't think that is a true reflection of what South Africa is capable of. I think we are better than what we did in France. The difference in the PSL and the Champions League, surprisingly, maybe I'll give you a few case studies. We played against Maniema in the preliminary stages of the competition. I had not heard of that name before. It was a team from DRC. That team managed to score 2 goals against us. And we dominated the match. We should have sealed the match without conceding a goal. But in the Champions League, one thing that I've learned, I don't know whether it's the level of competition or the focus that players and these nations have towards the Champions League, but there is no room for error. Last year in Egypt, we played against Al-Ahly. We dominated the match and played very well, but made 2 mistakes which could have been half chances in South Africa. But those 2 half chances were punished immediately and we came back with 2-0. In South Africa, you make as many mistakes sometimes. You can give an opposition maybe 3 big chances, and they still don't score. Maniema got smaller chances. One was a mistake from Mosa, and the other one was a skanker from outside the box, which we never expected. And they only had those 2 chances, and they punished us. So if you look at the game that we played against Hilal, we made 2 errors first half in that match, and out of those 2 errors, they got 2 shots at goals. One of the errors was even in their half. It was a free kick we passed to their player, and it was a counter attack. From there, it went to our right channel. Immediately, it comes back to the box, and Brian Onyang saved it on the line. Just a small mistake. In South Africa, maybe with that mistake, you would not have seen that ball coming into your 18 area. So those are the smaller margins that you can always find in the Champions League, that there is just no room for error. We make one silly mistake, you are punished, and at times that puts a lot of stress and frustration on the players, because they know they must be very focused throughout the 90 minutes, because one mistake can cost you the game. And when you're playing with that kind of pressure, at times you are bound to make even more mistakes. But I think our boys are growing in that space, and they're improving, and we are happy in that space.
Thank you very much, colleagues.
Coach, I listened attentively to the interview from Andile Jali with about a couple of days ago, and the confidence and the arrogance that he has, that for him the league is done. It's now the Champions League as well as the FNB Cup. What is the general feeling within the football club in regards to the Champions League, and how important is it for you to have a player such as Andile Jali within the camp, the way that he carries himself off the pitch, on the pitch as well? How important the character is he within the camp of Sundowns?
Football is a very strange game. There are so many talented players out there. At times, you have very good training players who will be exceptionally good in training and give you goosebumps in training, but you bring them to the match, they are not performing at the level that you expect. That's why other coaches would say you've got lions in training, but you've got cats in the match. And a player like Andile Jali is that specimen that is important for the game, but it must always be in moderation. You want players that have got a very high self-esteem, but you don't want them to be arrogant. You want them to have a very good level of humility, but still very assertive in believing who they are, because that is a very, very powerful trait in football. Most of the mistakes we make in football are the mistakes that we make as a result of being scared sometimes. But when you don't have that element of fear, you will check all the most successful players are the players that take more risks in the opposition half, because that fear factor is not as hyped up as with other players. And there are other players that are extremely talented, but with all the talent that they have, they don't want to make mistakes. And when you don't want to make mistakes, then you never play to your full potential. Because sometimes in football, more risks mean maybe better pay package sometimes. Because other players that risk more but make a success of those risks, they are regarded as legends and top footballers. So Andile Jali is that specimen that you would want to have, a player that believes in himself to a point of saying, whenever he comes into a match, it's like a contest in a fight. No, I'm going to dominate the space. I will win here. I will be a better player than the opponent. That puts a lot of pressure on you, because you cannot drop the ball. When you are a little bit more confident, you must make sure that you live up to the expectations. But to sum it up, I think he's a very important component of the team, and you would want to have more of such players. We do have a few who have so much confidence in their capacity, and that makes us to be a team that goes away from home with a mentality to win. Because when you are going away from home and you are going with players that are not too confident of their capacity, then you say, hey, maybe a draw will be a good result. But with players that we have, they give us that confidence to say, no, man, we can go out there, it's 11 versus 11. We've got the capacity to also win this match. And in many instances, that has happened.
Coach, thank you very much for your time. Colleagues, we are out of time. I do have to, unfortunately, let the coach go. Coach, all the best for this season.